Hey, welcome back to Point Blank. And I said back because we miss you, and it was like you just was gone for a moment, just a moment. You know, I'm Adolphus Pruitt, and
I'm Daryl Gray.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, today you're going to have the opportunity to get a smorgasbord of Pruitt and Gray. Opinionated, poignant,
sometimes controversial.
we have a topic today that we really want to drill down into. Do you thank God for the Washington Post?
Yeah,
the Washington Post sort of completed a look at the fatal force database, police involved shootings, and they came back, and I'm just the best way I can say it is to read it. It said that officers have shot and killed more people every year, reaching a record high in 2021 of 1,047 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI database contains only about 1/3 of the 7,000 fatal police shootings during this time, down from half when the Washington Post started tracking. Let's be clear. The FBI has a database.
That's right.
That departments from all across this state, the country,
mm-hmm.
are supposed to report fatal shootings by police officers. So we can track it. We can make decisions. We can learn from it. We've came up with all sort of force investigative units and everything so that we can learn and try to restrict the numbers and lower the numbers and make policing better. Make it better. And one other thing, let me go back and say, they said the highest, a record high in 2021. I thought we were in a pandemic. I didn't know people were still out in 2021. I mean, so it occurred in a period where people were they were not out.
A lot of crime just went inside.
Let me pass this on to Daryl.
No, I mean, you know, Adolphus and you and I, we've talked about this. I think that in your vision, you wanted to make sure that we focused on public safety. We had here in St. Louis our public safety director, Dan Isom. We had the special agent in charge of the FBI here who came out of D.C., did some great things in D.C., Jay Greenberg. And you know, as I told you, I was a little bit hesitant at first because I come out of that protest movement. And as we have post Mike Brown, talked about criminal justice reform, police accountability, transparency. The topic of that Washington Post article, you know, as you read the headline, there was one word that stood out: unaccountable. And so, I mean, for activists, for protesters, for people within the Black Lives Matter movement and the police reform movement, I mean, it kind of, what we've been saying, what we've been marching about, what we've been protesting about, it seems like everything has changed, you know, with President Obama's 21st century policing plan, you know, what we thought, okay, we're on the right track. Ferguson report, we're on the right track. All these other reports, all these other recommendations, but here we are now, years later from Mike Brown's death, we're finding out that absolutely nothing has changed. And my understanding is, well, police chiefs will say, well, it's largely because we're not sure how we're supposed to be reporting these things. And some police are still not required. You think about it, 21st Century Policing Report 1,600 police chiefs across the country, and we didn't have a fourth of them adhering to most of the recommendations in the 21st Century Policing Report. So I'm not surprised at what you found out. I'm not surprised at all at this Washington Post article.
Well, there are other glaring things that came out of their study. They said that black people, people of color, are fatally shot by police far more often than is evident in the FBI data.
Well,
matter of fact, they found that when they applied the FBI data and what was left out, it was double the rate of white victims, double.
And again, Pruitt, I've got a lot of respect for you. No one is surprised. I mean, and that's unfortunate. I think that there are some things that should surprise us. But the reality is, like you said, when we talk about it, 6.0 per million per year, 1,889 black, Hispanic, 2.6 per million per year, 1,273 white, non-Hispanic, 2.4 per million per year, 3,500. Although half of the people shot and killed by police are white. Now we need to understand that, but that's the majority population. We continue to say, and at some point we're going to get to resolution. We're going to get to the why, and we're going to talk about that on the show too. But black Americans are continue to be shot at a disproportionate rate than everybody else.
Well, we have to talk money. We have to talk money. So as a result of what happened in Ferguson, Mike Brown, it was decided that these departments needed to do their reporting and tracking. Mm-hmm. And so the government has shelled out money, millions for departments to upgrade their systems. And then it turns out that the Washington Post report comes back and says there were 440 departments who did not or are not reporting, had missing data, but those departments have been paid $90 million. $90 million. And so they got $90 million to get it wrong.
Hey.
Now, wait a minute.
You're right.
Now, let's be clear. We got people who took PPP who weren't supposed to get it.
And they're going to jail. And they're going to jail.
Now.
And they're going to jail.
We got a task force at the federal level based on the PPP, and they're going after them. But here we got 440 departments, $90 million to upgrade their systems and do the reporting, and the data's wrong.
But as you're saying, I mean, that's the reality. And it's not an underfunding of law enforcement. And this is money that is supposed to go specifically to maintaining that database. The reality is, I would suspect that if we ventured a little bit more, Adolphus, the money's not going to do that, to keep those stats. At least 34 states, in at least 34 states, laws require police to report crime data to the state. But most of the laws, according to this report, are vague. In Missouri, where we live, we've got a state government who says, we don't want your money. We don't want your money because we don't want the strings that are attached to that money. We don't want to follow those guidelines. We want to continue to do. And I'm sure that Missouri and some of the specific cities that you'll talk about, all of them feel the same way. If we don't take the money, then we don't have to abide by the rules. The problem is, as you're saying, you've got some of these cities that are reporting 4 police shootings, but the reality is they've got dozens. And so how do we reconcile that in a time, Adolphus, where you and I both agree that public safety has got to be issue number one? How do we reconcile that?
You know, but Daryl, let's back up. Let's back up. I don't care what the state laws say. It don't makes no difference. I'm the feds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you $90 million
All right.
and telling you have to accomplish certain goals and meet certain standards to take my money. And you take my $90 million and you fail to meet the goal, you fail to meet the standard, you fail to accomplish what I gave you $90 million to do. I don't care what the state laws say they have to do not have to do. You took my money. Anybody else, you take federal dollars and don't do what the feds say you're supposed to do with the dollars, I know what happens.
But it's I agree. But listen, I agree with you there. And listen, I've got my own opinion on this, and we're going to talk about it. But we're going to have to take a break. You guys stay with us. This is Adolphus Pruitt and Daryl Gray. We're on Point Black.
Welcome back to Point Black, the show that goes get straight to the point. Because I got to get back to this $90 million. I got to get back $90 million. Let's be clear. That $90 million that went to these folks who are not reporting or can't report correct, it went to update their system. So it's not like they don't have a system in place where they are tracking police shootings, all shootings, crimes, they all tracking it. So this extra $90 million was to upgrade their system so they can do it better and report it to the FBI so the FBI can track it on a
Well, let's play devil's advocate. You usually do that role.
No, the devil is in the details right here.
But police would probably argue that with the level of crime currently in the United States right now, tracking data is probably not that high up on their priority list. They will probably submit, based upon this, Adolphus, that solving crime is going to be their priority.
Well, I'm going to let you in on the secret.
Where you have name a police force in this country right now who is not having problems with retaining police officers and recruiting police officers.
Let me let you in on the secret.
All right.
Now, you would find any police department that says tracking data is not an integral tool of law enforcement is, what's the town? Mayberry RFD. I'm just saying, because you can't conduct investigations without collecting data on each crime. You have to put the crime in the system. Each police department, the only way they stop somebody and you want to know if this person has a prior arrest and this and that, the data is in there. What I'm saying is that if the police are arresting you for any reason whatsoever, they putting the data in there. When they arrest you, why they arrest you, any witness is in there. This was $90 million to upgrade their system. So let me give you an example why this is important.
Mm-hmm.
So they reported on Boise, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
They said Boise, Idaho, who's got money to upgrade their system,
right,
fatally shot 12 people whose deaths were not recorded in the FBI database. Okay. 12 people. And the reason why that's even more important, two reasons. One is I put an article out the root. The former Boise police chief found to have ties to white supremacist groups. And it went on and said for his whole, he retired after 22 years of running that police department, the department where they killed 12 people that they didn't report to the FBI. He retired after 22 years, and they said that his ties to those groups go back through his whole career in law enforcement.
Well, there we've solved the problem.
Career.
We've solved the problem.
But then it gets worse because that's Boise, just one city.
That's right.
Then we put every town, there was a press release of every town for gun safety. And the title was, Police Violence in Idaho Continues to Rise After 3 Police Shootings in 3 weeks Across the State.
You know, once again, we've solved the problem.
And these are folks ain't reporting.
Yeah. But we've identified, and you said it at the top of the show. When you talk about the disproportionate number of black and brown people have been killed. Why don't police keep this data? Do we honestly? We know they have the money. We're not talking about officers who are needed on the street. We're talking about people who collect data, input data, research people. These are the folk we're talking about. We're not talking about police who get up every morning to serve and protect, go out and police and protect communities. We're talking about departments, Adolphus, be it Boise, be it Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis. You're talking about they don't want to tell that story.
Well,
do you think that these police departments want this data to be in the FBI database that they are killing black and brown people disproportionately? So I agree with you. You're talking about $90 million and the money is there.
Just for
but
those
there's got to be
it's more money than that. That was just
exactly.
444.
But at the end of the day, wouldn't you agree that there has got to be a willingness to solve the problems? I agree with you that the data is important. But in this particular case, why is that data important? Now, for me, that data is important because it continues to speak to the lack of police accountability, the lack of police transparency. It continues to speak to the reality that the white supremacist police chief in Boise.
Let's be clear. Why is that data important? Let's be clear. The death of any person, especially at the hands of anybody,
agree,
justifiable or unjustifiable, is recorded by the police department and the coroner. Because actually, at the end of the day, the coroner, in most cases, or pathologists and stuff get involved, and the force investigative unit and those folks, everybody has to look at that and make a determination whether it was justifiable or unjustifiable.
Agree.
So what I'm saying is that a good example. I'm gonna share something with you. Let's be clear. I want to make sure we understand what happens when a police officer shoots someone and the force investigative unit get involved. They got investigative process that involve the officers who get all of the evidence. The officers are separated until the detectives had completed interviews. The assigned detectives in charge of conducting meticulous investigation include interviews, forensic analysis of evidence, collection of video surveillance, any available on-body cameras provided. Then they got the director of accountability is immediately notified and may respond to the location. And then if it's a fatality, the deceased and all the independent investigation body gets involved. Then and the officer that did the shooting, he has to automatically go through some psychological consultation. Then you got the internal affairs division of the police. So what I'm saying is, you have all of this analysis and review and deep dive into what happened when there's an officer involved shooting, more than when any other fatality that occurs in there that the police investigate. None of them get the scrutiny that an officer involved shooting gets. So when we talk about data, there's tons of data.
Yeah, I agree.
So where I'm getting at, so if you tracking it to that degree, and the data is in the system, in the source, then this thing about they don't want to report because they don't want anybody to know, it ain't effective reporting because the data, you can get the information. The courts, you can get a court order, you can get the information. What I'm saying is that if you're going to take my money, my $90 million,
I got you,
to upgrade your system so you can inform me when this happens, and let me tell you why it's important. Let's be clear, because we mentioned Boise, but let's be clear. In Chicago, they underreported by 45 deaths. Indianapolis by 20. Milwaukee by 14. Detroit by 18. St. Louis, now here's St. Louis City. They reported 23 out of 23.
That's St. Louis.
Now, if St. Louis can report it,
way to go, St. Louis. Way to go, St. Louis.
If St. Louis can report it 100%, Louisville underreported by 23. Shelby County by 10. St. Louis County underreported by 14.
But you're making my point too, though.
By 14.
Yeah, but you're making my point too. Even when we go back to St. Louis, 23 out of 23. Post Mike Brown, the level of activism that has taken place in this city, and activists, community leaders like yourself, BJ and others, throughout the board, we've kind of held the city and the police department to the fire. We've kept their feet to the fire. Now, according to the article, the FBI asked roughly 18,000 law enforcement departments nationwide to report all homicides, including those by officers on duty, so that the information could be used for, as you said, research and to be made available to the public. There are things that they don't want the public to know. Why? You got the lawsuits, you got the protests. Now, they're saying the decline in reporting is driven by multiple factors. In many cases, departments simply choose not to report fatal police shootings to the FBI. In other departments, they're required by law to send the data to state officials who neglect to forward it. So I understand the intricacies of the reporting. I understand that there's a formula, there's a process. I get it. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about Andy or Mayberry in Boise, Idaho, if you're talking about Andy in Boise, who doesn't have to.
I may be talking about Barney Fife.
We're talking about Barney. So we're talking about Barney. We're talking about one bullet Barney in Boise / Mayberry. And that local department has got to send that information to the FBI. My issue, in addition to many, is that there's no link also with the state, and that's why I said.
So what happened with Los Angeles? Los Angeles unreported by 104. 104. What happened with Los Angeles? Now that ain't Mayberry RFD.
I agree.
That's Hollywood.
That's right. Yeah, hey, that's Hollywood, but that's also South Central LA. That's also Compton. That's also that's Compton too. That's South Central too.
Yeah, but get to your point though.
The level of crime.
I want to support your point though.
Okay.
I just saw something in the report. I want to read this. It says at a meeting in Pittsburgh this year, an advisory subcommittee for the FBI data collection program considered a proposal from some law enforcement to exclude fatal shootings by police from the public database and submit them instead to an internal FBI collection. Some information eventually would be made public, but only in summary form. So now these folks saying, hey, we want to submit, but hey, FBI, we want you to take it and put it in the back file cabinet. Put it in the back of the file cabinet. Now they said they turned it down. They said no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And then in Kansas, I'm gonna help you out. Y'all don't know Reverend Gray. He's a former Kansan. What would that? What's
a Kansan?
A Kansan.
Like Dorothy, Toto, the Wizard, that whole crew.
He spent some time in Kansas.
Yes, I did. Wichita, Kansas. Shout out to Wichita.
In Kansas, for example, departments must report all felony and misdemeanor offenses to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation.
My point.
Now, this was which said it sends the data to the FBI, but the state bureau interprets the law to exclude them since a justifiable homicide isn't a crime. There's no felony or misdemeanor offense to report.
Okay, so we're giving you all right. So in Kansas, we're giving you 50-50. But the reality is this.
But
it goes back to my point.
At
least they're collecting, and you've got police chiefs and departments that are saying, "Well, I thought somebody else was supposed to report it. Even if I give it, I thought some other department." And so I think that's part of the problem, Adolphus, is that we're finding you can't go from local government and skip over state government and go directly to the federal government. You said it one of our first episodes. All politics is local. All government is local. And particularly when we're talking about public safety. Public safety is a local issue. It has to be a local issue. And so but you can't have the police departments blaming this lack of data on anybody but themselves. But I can't hold the FBI accountable at the end of the day for doing something that I believe that local government and state government ought to be doing.
So I'm not you giving them an out in some ways, and see, I won't do that.
But please don't say that on the radio.
You give them an out, so you giving them that activist shuffle.
right.
Activist shuffle.
All right.
You know, that activist Michael Jackson, what is it, moonwalk.
The moonwalk.
Yeah. See, let's be clear. See, you saying that because they turn it over to the state and the state sends it to the FBI, that's their excuse for not getting the data. But the state didn't get the money. The local police department got the money.
Then give it to the state.
See, so the local police department got. See, I'm getting back to whoever's got the money has a responsibility to make sure that the data gets to the FBI.
I agree with you.
No, I'm not saying.
I agree with that.
Yeah, they got the responsibility. Whether they give it to both of them, they have the responsibility to make. So here's a good example, and I didn't realize California is our liberal state.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
What is in Vallejo, population of 120. They said police have fatally shot 6 people in 7 years with a population of 120,000.
Agree.
But then they go back and say that the Post found that 500 fatal shootings in California, nearly half of the state's total since 2015, were missing from the FBI database.
Are we saying missing or never got there?
If it ain't in there, they never got there. Missing. It never got there. How do you 500?
And I agree. And I think it should be extremely not just concerning, it should be alarming. Again, after Mike Brown, after Breonna Taylor, after Eric Gardner, and we can go down the road, we can call the road. We all believe, and I definitely know the NAACP, this is the kind of information that is critically needed because it leads to reform. It leads to reform. And so I agree with you, but I still submit if we can see this, if we can, extract this from this report, then at the end of the day, I always, use Dr. King's last book, is the title, then where do we go from here? How do we turn this around? Is there any evidence in this report, Adolphus, that show that we've acknowledged this as a problem? It's a major problem. We can't do reform if we don't have the data, if we don't have the information. So then where do we go? What do you say then, Pruitt, as an NAACP establishment, kind of middle of the road advocate?
I say what any federal prosecutor says, and most prosecutors say when it comes to federal dollars, follow the money.
Yeah.
I see. I'm going back to whoever got the money.
Gotcha.
Has a responsibility to make sure that the person that is paying for the information gets it. The fact that they use a third party is irrelevant.
Gotcha.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
They got the money. If you're going to take the money to provide me a service, and I fail to get what I'm paying for, you cannot tell me because I pass it off to a third party to do it. That's my out. No,
I agree.
That's not your out.
I agree with you.
Because the responsibility relied on you with the money. And here's why it's even more critical. We brought up California, the 500 that is not in the database. Guess what else?
What's that?
The racial disparity of fatal police shootings in California is larger than the nationwide disparity. The Post found black people in the state of California are killed at nearly 4 times the rate as white people.
And it's not like the FBI has not given these incentives. The Justice Department has distributed, we talked about that $90 million, but the Justice Department has distributed over $285 million annually through their Justice Assistance Grant Program. And this is state and local governments. And they pass the money on to area police, sheriff's department. They receive their share according to a formula that they've come up with. And what they're saying is that departments must report at least 3 years of homicides. Now, it goes back to your point. If I am a consumer and or I'm looking for a service, and I've given you a retainer, I've given you a down payment, then you're absolutely right. I expect you to provide the service that I'm paying you for. Now, as a consumer, what I can do, I could just withdraw my enthusiasm from your product or from your service. The FBI cannot withdraw themselves from local police because, as Jay told us the other day, the importance of the teamwork and working together, FBI, local police, etc., is critical to public safety.
So let me give you another example. But I love this post data. I got to share this with you, Daryl. And this piece here, let's put it this way. I don't have much hair, but I'm going to grow some. In Pennsylvania, a 2004 law requires departments to report all offenses to the state police. The state police, which sends the data to the FBI, and the state police interprets the law.
Yeah.
That interprets the Pennsylvania law to include fatal shootings by police. So now here. So now we've got rid of that.
Justifiable homicide isn't a crime.
Here's a law. Here's a law. No, that is not this. Here's a law. The state law says you have to send it to the state police, and the state police said they include fatal shootings by police officers being in that batch. That's our interpretation. But although the law specifies that funding should be withheld for non-compliance,
yes,
state police say they are unaware of any departments having been penalized. So now
well, I mean, Pruitt, police have never policed police. I mean, well, that's my motto. You know, we're talking about loopholes, we're talking about lax reporting, and we're talking about no enforcement. And the reality is, and you said it, and we were talking off air a few minutes ago about white collar crime, where whites are involved, white collar crime where blacks are involved, different result. The end result is usually different. But now we're talking about law enforcement who are using loopholes, who are not reporting, and who are not, and then there's no enforcement by the FBI on the other side. So, once again, though, Adolphus, it does go to, I want to be able to trust police. When I call 911, I don't want the baker to show up. I want the police to show up.
You don't want the who to show up?
I don't want the baker.
It depends on what kind of gun he got, don't it?
No.
And how well he shoots.
No, man.
We put a pin in it. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more from Point Blank. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Point Blank. Today's show we've been talking about this Washington Post report. It was titled Unaccountable, and it just talks about how fatal police shootings have increased since 2015, and that most of them go unreported. What it said was that since 2015 that there's been over 7,000 people killed as a result of fatal police shootings, with a third of that number, only a third of that number being reported.
Right.
That a lot of that goes unreported. And despite the fact that the government has dished out $90 million of taxpayer dollars to ensure that police departments had the systems and had the ability to upgrade their system and send this data to police. And so, Daryl, what I think we need to talk about, and folks, we would, my voice got a little lower, and I'm talking probably more serious than I have since we've been talking about this today, only because, we're going to talk about the victims a little bit.
Right.
Because I think, I just think people need to understand that in 2021 was the highest single year since 2015 for police-involved shooting, police fatally shooting someone. And there was over 1,000 people in 2021. And I prefaced that earlier by saying that, let's be clear, we're in the middle of the pandemic, so it's not like people were out like they normally are.
Right.
And so I think that just makes it even a little bit more astonishing. But what I want to sort of jump into now, and Daryl, I really want to get your opinion about it, because it said that half of those folks that were killed, half were between, let's be clear too.
Right.
And black folk fatally shot by police was in most cases nationwide 3 or 4 times, at least three times that are white, and in California alone it was 4 times that. So when you take that and then you look at the age range for the victims was between the ages of 20 and 40 years old.
Yep.
20 and 40 years old. So we're not talking about, we talking about some fairly young adults, people in their young adults and moving into what we call middle adulthood. But between 20 and 44, with the largest batch actually being between 20 and 34.
Right.
The 35 to 39, was a little high, but if you go to 20 to 24, these are young people. Wouldn't you say?
No, and I agree with you, Adolphus. I mean, this is serious. You've got families out there. You've got mothers. You've got wives. You've got other loved ones who are simply saying that their loved ones, their death needs to be counted. And it doesn't matter if it's justifiable homicide. It doesn't matter how you want to categorize someone's death, that if you don't report it, then you don't know if people are making a habit of doing this. And so if we're talking about, the Boise incident or others where you've got police with bias, with racial bias, we need to know. We need to know what those numbers are. And so when you look at it and you see these glaring numbers between 20 and 39, over half of the people killed by police between 20 and 40, black males, then that speaks to something.
Yes.
That speaks to an issue that has to be addressed. And we do have to get to the reason. We've got to get to the reason for that mother, for that wife, for that sister, for that daughter, for that son, for that family member. And that is real. I mean, we talk about in our community the absence of black men. Between mass incarceration and police shooting black men, therein lies the answer. It's not the only answer.
But what about those folks that say, well, the only reason that that's happening because they're young, because they got guns and they point on shooting them at police and this and that. You're going to hear people say that. And we don't know how much of that is true because it's been proven over and time again that a number of the fatal shootings by police have been proven that the police acted out of character, or that let's be clear, when you shoot somebody 58, 60 times, to me that says something.
Well, you're right. I mean, in the article, which was Arkansas, this deputy shooting, the young man, last name White, police officer arrives at the home. The young boy has a pocket knife. Police goes in with a taser. He sees the pocket knife. He puts the taser back, shoots the young man 4 times. And I understand, listen, my hat goes off to policemen and women who go out every day and do their job and believe in the theme protect and serve. And so my hat goes off to them. I know that it's a job that just anybody can't do. The problem is because they're law enforcement, because they carry a gun, because they have a license to kill, they've got to be, there's got to be a stricter bar. There's got to be. And we cannot allow police officers who do things, as you and I both know, that are not typical of most police. We've got to be able to get that information because that information tells a story. Mm-hmm. See, it's not just numbers. These are people with who had lives and they have stories, and we've got to be able to know what those stories are based upon that data. If it is justifiable homicide, it's justifiable homicide. But some of it is excessive use of force. Some of it are shootings that don't need to take place. Like you said, who needs to shoot somebody 50 sometimes? And so these are the stories that that I think law enforcement have an obligation to share with the public in order to do something to bridge that gap that is so wide between law enforcement, communities of color, and communities of poverty.
Yeah, but when you think about it, you mentioned that some law enforcement agencies don't want to report, and it's ironic. You ruled it justifiable. Why wouldn't you want to report something if you're right? You ruled that it was justifiable. But they had another numbers I was looking at about Black Americans being killed at a much higher rate than whites. 6 blacks per 1 million per 6 out of per 1 million for blacks. 2.6 out of per million for Hispanic. 2.4 for whites. So the numbers, I think that's glaring. And when you go back at the age range, do you think that the stigma that Black people are more violent is also playing a role in how police approach Black young people on the street, and it winds up with this sort of shooting? Do you? And I think that's why tracking the data is important, because it points to areas that we can sort of look at and try to see what's really going on.
There was a study that was done by young man, Espinoza Lee and Edwards. They estimated that 1 in 2,000 men and 1 in 33,000 women have a lifetime risk of dying as a result of police use of deadly force, with the highest risk for Black men, approximately 1 in 1,000. And you're absolutely right. And you and I have talked about it. We've talked about it here with local police and state police and with federal law enforcement. Training is important. Better training is important, and particularly racial sensitivity training. We've got to do better. We've got to demand better training in our police academies. And it's not enough, Adolphus, just to put Black police officers on the street. We want good police officers on the street, and we want them equipped to do their job. But with the equipment that they have, we want them not just to be trained on the use of how to use a firearm, but when to use a firearm.
And at $90 million, I want them to report when they use it, or don't take the money. That's why we gave you $90 million. I'm having a hard time getting past that we're allowing people to take the money to inform us about what they're doing. They're taking the money, they're doing what it is that they're doing, they're just not reporting it. And then when you take and add on the fact that a lot of these folks are young people, and then you add on the fact is that a majority of them happen to be Black, and some say 4 times anybody else. When you put all of that together, it means something.
But there's still local accountability, and I think that it's unfortunate we don't have enough time. But I think that we go back. The local accountability has got to be with our boards and commissions, our public safety directors and public safety committees, and that's something that you and I and others who are involved in this every day have got to begin to work at and make sure that law enforcement is accountable. Listen, that is all the time we have, but it's been a great conversation, Adolphus. I appreciate it. Listen, we've got BJ in the studio. We got Craig in the studio. I'm Daryl Gray with Adolphus Pruitt. Thank you for joining us on Point Black. Tune in again next week.
$90 million is all I've got to say. $90 million.